things.
Merci d'être avec nous.
Bonjour.
Thank you very much for being with us. Well, thank you. I'm not cold. I am cold a little bit.
Heureusement qu'on vous a pas fait manger tout en haut.
Oh, fortunately for you, we didn't have lunch on the roof because otherwise everyone would have been frozen there. Chloé, it's a kind of informal chat we're having right now. You're one of the figures for our clients' interactions. It's like a small family, and you're one of our contact people. So he's putting some pressure on me now. But before, talking about this merciless sector of clients' relationship, and before working in this sector, you started studying international relations and communications. So you studied for 4 years in communications, and then you started working in clients' relationships for Canal and then for PMU. And you were in charge of clients, customers, and customer knowledge and data. And now you're working for as a marketing director for BNP Paribas, Partners in Action and Customer Experience. Yes, that's the title, and I like it. So how do you get from what you did and what you do now? Because people must have wondered if you'd been punished for what you're doing right now. Well, there are several answers, actually. It depended on the people I met, people that I wanted to join, and projects that I wanted to support. But in both cases, one of the common points in the second communications agency, I was working on everything that was outside the media. Our baseline was efficient relationships with useful audiences. And these 5 words are interesting. We're talking about converging interests between brands and customers. And so this mutual asset that we can find, and also useful audiences. This is something that we hardly ever use in marketing and in clients' relationship. We talk about targets. But what's interesting and what has changed over the last years is that we tended to say that communications worked on intermediaries with journalists, for instance, and marketing was for final customers. And what has changed now, and what makes it interesting, is that we start targeting people with several responsibilities, clients who are partners, providers who also are prospects. So these faceted people are important. And that's what drew my interest. And when I started working in communications, I mostly thought about the glamorous part of it, but it's no longer the case. And when I started working in marketing at Canal+, people looked at me in a weird way, but people have a very bad image about client relationships and about themselves as well, working in the sector. So that's probably one of the main challenges for the future. So you were saying while preparing this intervention, this drew a mentality shift at Canal+, saying, well, you're not the teams you're talking about at the end of the corridor. You are the people who are in touch with our customers, and this the customer's opinion is crucial for us to give us some feedback. And of course, you really supported the teams. You pushed them to climb the red stairs on the red carpet of the Cannes Festival, for instance. Or at Canal+, I humbly contributed to a collective effort for people inventing products in any company, do something they think is marvelous, but everything can just crumble down in 3 minutes if you talk about this with a customer, and if people fail to sell the product. And if the person hangs up and say, oh, wow, at Canal+, they don't know how to sell their thing. So if there's a tool that doesn't work, if the process was the wrong one, the wrong person was recruited, whatever the case, if there's something that doesn't work in the interpersonal relationship, thanks to with the advisors, this is crucial to what we started believing in at Canal+, was the fact that advisors are crucial. And the sentence that I didn't know earlier about front lines for Bain, and I do believe in this. Advisors are in front, are in the front line. So they really face reality, and this is something that really helped us evolve. And if we fall in love with this job, and most of the people that I know and who work in this field, for example, I talked to my friend from Chloé Beauvallet. So we need to give them the right tools to succeed in front of their management, thanks to the products that they have. Well, they need to succeed anyhow. And so we need to make this change so that they help customers in the end and that it works. So you were talking about marketing. Marketing that is going to conceive something ideal so that people can face reality, sad reality sometimes. Sometimes it's not. Yeah, it's true. There are positive things that happen also within these customer service, with the example of Zappos this morning, or ideas that come from customers themselves that are thrown away because they're not, because the message is not conveyed. It can be very positive sometimes. Exactly. So my question was, does this discrimination between marketing and customer relationships does it still exist, or is it over? Well, let's make a survey here. Who votes for the fact that it's over? There you go. Well, concretely, it's still not over, but there are a lot more positions about customers' experience, etc. But let's not brag about it. There are not a lot of people, a lot of customer relationship managers who go to the stores, etc., and give some feedback. So then all the comments are now more and more tracked, and now there's a lot more porosity between these two jobs and these two functions, so we need even more. But that's what we were saying as an introduction. It's way broader than this. Well, that's true. As you were saying, now everyone wants to own this, or wants to deal with customer relationships. So it's probably a new opportunity, but it's also a challenge. And I think it's part of your duties. So could you tell us a little bit more about this, please? About the fact that everyone wants to deal with this now. So how can we make this work and capitalize on this instead of compartmentalize these things? one of the real things, and I've been working on this for almost 20 years. At the beginning, it was something a little bit dodgy that no one wanted to deal with. It was just after-sales service. It was something a bit shameful, and no one liked it. So what has changed over the last years is that all the annual reports say that we are customer-centered, etc., and that we are customer-oriented. But in my opinion, it's not exactly the case. But we need to draw the conclusions and to understand what it means, and everyone feels that customers belong to their core activity. So everyone defends this. So everyone has their say. Now HR also defends this idea. Also for innovation, finance. And so all of a sudden, people believe that they're customer-centered. So I think that the true question here is, who is going to defend our customers? If everyone does, that's great. Some companies are conceived that way. And when we talk about Airbnb or BlaBlaCar, but some other companies first invented a product and then started selling it. So this revolution of flipping the whole company around is something that's ongoing. And so we need to find the right conductor and to say, hey guys, we're going that way, because everyone does well for customers, but no one shares the information, then collectively this is never going to work. That's like the new social contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. But if no one tries to work together, and the bigger the companies, the more incoherent things might be, because it will be efficient product individually, but then people will be frustrated in the end because it won't work collectively. So it needs to be coordinated. So how do we do then? How do we get to that consistency? Is it a question of tools, of processes, of strategic choices? Do we have the right recipe? Well, I think if we had it, things will be done. I think it's a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are to be taken into account. We need to to come up with a vision, and then to be able to explain it correctly. And then if tools are bad and hinder our activity, well, this can be an obstacle as well, can be a hurdle. If we send flowers to a customer, as said earlier, this will make the difference and will stand out. Well, this can be a tool. But as I was saying in my former company at PMU, you need to obey the rules, even if, although the rules are stupid. Well, and they would ask me, well, how do we do? Well, we need to, disobey sometimes if you see that it doesn't work. Is there any example of positive transgression? Well, for example, at Canal+, I have a strong memory. We were trying to do some proactive push. So we needed to sell CanalSat, the Canal+ satellite services. And a lady would call me and say, well, my husband is going to go to jail. Well, we shouldn't have come up with an agreement. And so, of course, we doubted, and the advisor didn't seal the deal. So no one blamed the advisor for not sealing the deal. So sometimes we need to give up our efficiency in the service of collective efficiency. And we need to identify the capacity to say that I'm going to do a little bit less. For instance, on a website, I need to develop this for it to be perfect. Yeah, of course, but this will be inconsistent with what happens before and then with the rest of the applications. If the chapters and tabs are not consistent between themselves, if it's illegible for clients, well, then never mind. I will leave this for now, and I will give up on the efficiency of a marketing campaign because I need to stick to my objectives and sell my products. But you know, if my neighbor works on customer satisfaction, or someone else who works on I don't know what, well, if they're not as good as I am, well, I will reduce my efficiency and lower it at 80%, just like my neighbors, so that we all work at the same pace. And I always use the image of Tetris. So it's like a puzzle, so that everyone collectively can deliver something consistent. But we need to accept to really play as a team. Isn't there something about working for the company, but also a set of incentives and bonuses? But a lot of people have a look at their own objectives instead of looking at the more global objective that is customer-centered. So don't you think that this transformation, this shift, should be made at company level? Oh, yes, indeed, but you know, everyone's going to get scared because people will think, well, if no one moves, then I'm not going to move, because otherwise I'm going to get shouted at. If everyone use one single drop to put a fire down, well, then it will work. Well, it's a holistic approach. Let's say it's a question of performance, it's a question of quality, of premises, of tools, of training sessions, of recruitment techniques and criteria. It's the capacity of aligning all these things. And that's when vision is crucial, so that you get a global vision and everyone is contributing to the whole thing. So we need to start from some point. So we need to start with the same puzzle and to build it up together. Otherwise, it won't work. So as you worked for PMU, you were in charge of data. We also talked about transactional data. We talked about relational data. You were explaining me that we have a very advanced transactional data knowledge, but we underestimate relational data. Could you explain the difference between the two and why we underestimate the relational data, and how could we use it? Well, this is my point of view, I'd say. But I think that the problem changed a little bit. Before, we would focus on data collection, which is less and less the case. Now we're talking about governance and data quality in order to use it as best as possible, and it's quite an important change. So what do you mean by transaction? It's when you keep track of the transaction of what you sell, simply. So that would be the receipt at PMU, and Canal Plus, it will be the subscription. It's just to keep track of the way people get in touch with the brand. It's the result, so to speak. It's the concrete track that's left by customers with their interactions with the brand. Then there's a second element, the browsing data that we tend to use more and more, not necessarily in campaigns, but you know, in chats, etc. So we can use them on sites and apps, and then there's also all the relationships, the content of emails, of chats, of messages on Messenger, of calls. This content is the only content that customers have the feeling that they're given to the brand. Otherwise, they do not really realize that they're given things. Well, they tend to realize this more and more, but sometimes they don't really have a choice. Whereas with the relationship, customer relationship, they intend to call us and to convey a message. They've made the effort of formalizing something and of phrasing a message. And sometimes it's tracked, sometimes it's recorded, and sometimes it's even written down or transcribed. But then using it with the past conversations of the same customer, well, you know, not a lot of people do this. Why not? Well, for many reasons, because sometimes the technologies are not mature enough. In writing, it's quite nice, but then for spoken conversations, it's a bit more difficult, even though there are new technologies. But today, I think that this capacity of interpreting these elements could make an incredible difference, because here we have such an incredible source of information. And when tracking these things, these elements, we can track the main customer's demand. Someone who's lost his login and username. Well, then if you can track these things, well, then we have a retention opportunity for these customers that's huge. Then in terms of technology, we've talked about technology a lot today. We are realizing that we do have a lot of dreams, but sometimes technology is not mature enough. Or sometimes we cannot use it because we haven't made the right arbitrations. What do you mean? Well, it's that, you know, we cannot necessarily do everything at the same time to build up teams. What are the priorities on the market for customer relationship? Well, you know, we've heard them over the day. There are a lot of things about the voice, and also about data usage. We need to bring more context, even for emotions. Sometimes it gives us goosebumps because it scares us. It's like Big Brother. But if it's relevant, you know, I'm happy. But these are things in terms of context, you know, with the broad meaning of the word, is crucial for us all. But I think that this is a true crucial topic in terms of organization, the capacity for companies to make these people work together, because they know that customer relationship is very important for customer relationship and marketing. Now that they're starting to work together, now there's no incoming or outgoing customers, so how could we track this and interact by using proactive elements and offerings, etc.? How can we find the right pace? And I think it's a fascinating issue or topic. And so we need to understand how it's perceived. Then, in the field, how does it work? Chloé, I've got one last question for you. When preparing this second edition of Conversation, we've wanted to bring more women on stage. They're underrepresented today, and it's difficult to have them on stage. How do you think it's still possible to face this situation in 2018? Well, I think you haven't looked for the right people, because, you know, there are so many people who've received awards. There have been 3. I think there are a lot of reasons. Well, there's no glass ceiling here. There's no conflict. Sometimes people tend to think, am I worth it? Can I do it? This is something that women tend to think. We'd need to ask them. But maybe we have less capacity to take the floor and to shine in these sectors. But in relation to customer relationship, there are a lot of women who work and who do a wonderful job. So maybe we need to force them to take this time. And I think that putting words on what we do is absolutely crucial in terms of, you know, just taking stock about what we do and explain what we do to our teams in order for things to move forward. So I could never advocate more the fact of presenting things, because I think it's always worth it. Well, the message has been conveyed, ladies. So I do hope you'll be there'll be more women on stage next year. And Chloé, you've attended the whole day. Would you like to try and conclude this day? Do you have a key idea you'd like to share with us in order to summarize something you'd take away from this day? Well, there's been an intervention about ad blockers this morning that I wasn't expecting, and that still convinces me about how convergent our sectors are and our activities are. Customers and people on the internet block ads, and now they filter them on demand, and this really shows that there's a win-win situation that we need to take advantage of as partners, and that at the end of the day, advertising has the same faces the same challenges as customer relationship. When I started in customer relationship, nobody knew what it was. No one, it was a dream job for no one. It wasn't a dream job for anybody. Now there are engineers who are trained on this. Now there are people who work on product marketing. So I think that now a lot of people make their interests converge, and they merge them. And so in terms of management, we're also trying to work in the same direction. And what's really striking for me is the more experience I share with people, the more stories I hear, it makes me see that we're all doing the same job. And so now is the time to really try and talk between ourselves, to talk to each other, and then focus on the people who are going to experience what we are trying to build. So let's try to renew the conversations, renew conversations within the firm. Thank you very much, Chloé. Thank you.